Hi, welcome to EDSC 550. This is week 2 instructors video. This week, just a couple of reminders. After you should have received your partners that you'll be working with for your group assignment, which is due week 8. And again, I will give you time in our next live session to go in breakout groups and prepare to work on that assignment and be there for any questions or concerns that you may have at this time. This is week 2, so your chapter reading is reading chapter 3 on biases, and also chapter 4 on reflection. You have a couple of videos to watch in regards to how prejudiced are you, um, recognizing and combating unconscious biases. So that's one of the videos that you'll be reading. There's also a brief article that you need to prepare yourself with. And you have 2 discussion boards due this week, and I'll be responding to those discussion boards and giving you some additional thought. Your first assignment is due this week. That is your the achievement gap assignment, remembering that you will complete and answer the questions as well as write a essay covering the additional questions as they relate to the questions on the paper. So composing information, answering all those questions in a narrative format and using APA format style. All right. So this week I'll be kind of going on making sure that I'm going to lecture on a few of the information that is located inside of the textbook. So, implicit biases. And so what are they? So first we have to understand that the first step is acknowledging that every person has implicit biases, and that the biases may relate to race, but that it's isn't a judgment against those with biases. It's a natural part of the way that our brains work, and that we are a product of the society that we live in, and we're all affected by our biases. One of the constant struggles of equity work is the feeling that we're stuck, and the system is set up to disadvantages people of color. And in fact, the educational system was created for white people and has drastically changed over the years. Talking about biases is very uncomfortable. Adults typically shy away from talking about biases because they're worried that it may make them look insensitive or be accused of being racist. Some of the statistics show that in education, students of a color achieve at significantly lower rates than the white students. And when asked why that is, you might hear about parent involvement or perhaps poverty, attitudes about education, and other factors that presume superiority of the mainstream white culture to justify that lower achievement rate. But the National Assessment for Educational Progress found in 2013 that the average reading score for 8th grade Black students from middle-class households was the same as white students from households eligible for free or reduced lunch. 78% of African American people in the United States do not live in poverty, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation in 2017. And even though the vast majority of African American friends, students, and colleagues are not living in poverty, there's often a false association between poverty and being Black. When we reflect on our beliefs about lower achievement, we realize that there are assumptions made that are not factual and that are not supported by the data. We want to blame socioeconomic status and achievement, but in reality, achievement is not accessible to Black students the way that it is for whites, regardless of economic involvement or attitudes. Some things to consider is that you can exist whether you consciously agree with it or not. Biases can exist whether we agree or disagree. We can use our explicit cognitive thought process to explain why our implicit automatic responses are what they are. And that the ethical standards and position statements from the American School Counselor Association underscore the importance of combating biases and increasing cultural competencies for all school counselors. So the definition of implicit bias is known as an implicit prejudice, an implicit attitude, and is a negative attitude of which one is not consciously aware of against a specific social group. Implicit bias is thought to be shaped by experiences and biases on learned associations between particular qualities and social categories, including race, and gender. Individuals' perceptions and behaviors can be influenced by the implicit biases that they hold, even if they're unaware that they hold such biases. Implicit bias is an aspect of implicit social cognition and the phenomenon that perceptions, attitudes, stereotypes can operate prior to conscious intent or endorsement. So the chapter goes on to kind of discuss more about the biases and what we can do when we have these specific biases and how we can begin to advocate for all. So when in chapter 4, it goes into the reflection aspect of it. And how do we reflect to address these particular biases? So it has a diagram there that has you as the center. And then how our implicit biases are shaped: family, school-wide, community, and society. And then for the other group, faculty, neighbors, and systems. So these are the things that we need to consistently reflect on to ensure that we're addressing those particular biases. The individual level of ecology allows us to focus on what we are, where we come from, and how we develop to understand our own biases. The family, we have to take the time to understand and cope with people in our lives whom we did not choose. Some of us have family that nurture, encourage, and support and believe in us. And then there's others of us who have family who hurt us more than we care to admit. So underlying all of this is a system of values that we inherit simply by being born to the people who raised us, or born and then adopted by people who raised us. So Anthony Bowens is a family system theorist who believed that all of our upbringing is complex, and it is a complex web of interaction. So the student educator counselor dynamic, just about every counselor and educator is asked to create a philosophy or practice at some point in their career. And we are tasked to reveal how we believe we might impact our students. Most of us want to be helpers, listeners, and encouragers. Rarely do counselors consider themselves to be agents of change in a racist society. So the counselor, teacher / administrator relationship is language that shifts every year. Recently, we've enforced the term people of color. And by the time this book is on every shelf, there'll be new terms. So we've accepted that change is inevitable. And what was once accepted will someday be outdated and possibly offensive. So professional development allows us a way to address how we've chosen to collaborate with our colleagues. And it helps us to increase our social justice tools and give us a safe space in which we can practice the language of uh, courageous conversations. There's often a lot of practice involved in this work because, again, we're not socialized to discuss race. Educators, especially counselors, are tasked with diving into the trenches of race related conversations and actions. Intersectional identity, it relates to race as the overlapping and intertwining nature of people. This intersection of race and sibling order or gender and affluences are examples of how complex the human condition is. And we have described identity above and how you have connected to your experiences with how you express yourself as a person. So, an example of that is like, what are two of your identifiers that intersect congruently? And how do two identifiers have similar experiences? An example of that is if you're a Black woman, you may identify as being Black and being a woman as two characteristics that share similar experiences of scrutiny or unreasonable expectations. If you're a person who identifies as LGBTQ and comes from a poor working class family, you may view these characteristics as having similar experiences of judgment or shame, or even conversely, self driven and prideful. So, what are the two of your identifiers that intersect incongruently? For example, being born in a wealthy family and Spanish speaking, or being young and aged and burnt out from stressful work. We have to unravel these complexities of intersectional identity in our lives. And by doing this, we can identify even more deeper and more complex ways of our belief system and how it has been shaped. So, our self reflection involves a multi level insight. The self reflection is designed to increase awareness and understanding. Each level of our insight offers a layer of information that can help inform school counseling practices. And all the levels offer school counselors an opportunity to detail, examine, and question their life experiences in ways that shape their understanding of social justice perspectives. So we want to take time to reflect on our biases and ensure that we are creating an equitable environment for all of our students and that we're advocating for those that have been underrepresented for currently or historically. So we want to make sure that we are addressing that. All right, that concludes my lecture on chapters 3 and 4 for this week. I look forward to seeing you again week 3 in our live session. Thank you.